Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Career Choice Series webinar on administrative agencies and administrative law judges. The Career Choice Series is designed to help you choose your career path. Whether you're a law student, young lawyer, or a transitioning attorney, find out what it's like to work in various practice areas and the best way to position yourself to get there. The Career Choice Series is brought to you today by ABA Legal Career Central, Law Student Division, Young Lawyers Division, and the section of Administrative Law and Regulatory Practice. The ABA section of Administrative Law and Regulatory Practice is an important actual and virtual gathering place for lawyers practicing in every sector and serving in government, private practice, and academia who seek to explain and improve the functioning of administrative agencies to serve the public well. The Young Lawyers Division is here to help new lawyers navigate the early years of their career and law students prepare for life after law school. The Law Student Division offers premium benefits, which includes a savings of $250 on Barbary Bar Review, $25 off West academic casebooks, and a legal ethics bundle that includes a free Model Rules of Professional Conduct ebook. Upgrade to premium for $25. Sign up today at abaforlawstudents.com/go-premium. ABA Legal Career Central is a career center that offers both career development resources and a job board for law students, lawyers, and other legal professionals across all disciplines and career stages. My name is Emily Roshek, Director of ABA Legal Career Central, and I'll be serving as your moderator today. I'm delighted to introduce to you our speakers today. We have Chris Fortier. He's an attorney advisor with the Social Security Administration's Office of Hearing Operations in Falls Church, Virginia. He has served in various capacities for the ABA Young Lawyers Division and its section of Administrative Law and Regulatory Practice, among others. He is the current president of the Virginia State Bar Young Lawyers Conference and a current fellow of the American Bar Foundation. We also have with us Judge Jody B. Levine, who is Administrative Law Judge, also with the Social Security Administration Office of Hearing Operations. Judge Levine is a former member of the ABA Board of Governors, past chair of the ABA Judicial Division, and Judicial Division National Conference of the Administrative Law Judiciary. She is a fellow of the American Bar Association and fellow of the Judicial Division National Conference of the Administrative Law Judiciary. Judge Levine and Chris, thank you so much for being here today to discuss about your respective positions working for an administrative agency. So to begin, I would like to give a brief overview of what that means. And Chris, I'll start with you. What does it mean to be an administrative lawyer?
Thank you, Emily. It's great to be with all of you, and I hope you find this program helpful. Before I begin, I have to say that my remarks are my own and do not reflect the views of the Social Security Administration or the United States federal government. So we got that out of the way. Administrative lawyers can do a lot of things. There's a lot of different practice areas. I remember a former chair of the admin law section. His name was Joe Whitley. He had this great quote at my first meeting, and he talked about administrative law being cradle to grave. How could that be, you may ask? Well, the Consumer Product Safety Commission regulates cradles, and there are state regulations to literally regulate graves. So it is literally a cradle to grave thing. Any consumer product has administrative regulations behind it. You can do it at the local level, at the state level, and at the national level, at the federal government level. So it's really all over the place. If you were to narrow it down into a few neat areas, a lot of the litigation that goes on with administrative agencies basically revolves around the question, did the administrative agency follow its own rules? And basically you have administrative avenues to follow everything up the way. You have to exhaust all your administrative forms of relief. If you're a lawyer, you can also litigate through the administrative hearings and through there, and then you appeal to the courts. At that point, you can basically argue if you're the agency, you would argue that yes, you follow the rules. If you're the plaintiff, you would say no, they didn't follow the rules. So that's kind of where you could begin with that. Um, let's see. Oh yeah, thank you. Rulemaking is another place to go with this. Thank you, Judge Levine, for saying rulemaking to me. Um, every agency has, well, every state in the federal government has an Administrative Procedures Act, at which point that lays out the way that new rules are made. Why do we rule make? Well, the Congress or the state legislature makes laws. And of course, the executive branch has to execute those laws. And in order to execute those laws, this is where we bring in experts, where we bring in the regulated community, where we bring in anyone and everyone who comes in and literally says, all right, this is how we're going to enforce X law. And they put it out, and let the public comment, and that's where it is. It can be an enormously complicated process. That's why lawyers are around. So that's a little bit of a teasing preview of rulemaking. But yes.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris. Now we're going to switch gears. Judge Levine, can you give us an overview of what it means to be an administrative law judge?
Absolutely, and thank you again. And I, like Chris, am appearing on my own. I am not representing the Social Security Administration, the federal government, or the American Bar Association. Being an administrative law judge actually is a wonderful position to have, and I know we'll be talking about that briefly later. You can be an administrative law judge, which is a special term of art used in the federal government. We are appointed under the APA. Other state agencies will use the term administrative law judge for their agencies. There also is a term called administrative judge, these folks also work in administrative agencies. The positions can be the same, but I did want to alert you there can be a distinction in how the title is used, and that will depend upon how the agency is set up, whether it's at the federal, state level, and there are even some at the municipal level. Very simply, what an administrative law judge, and I'll use that term exclusively today just for simplicity, we hear cases that arise either out of a regulation. For example, I used to hear oil and gas cases in the state of Oklahoma. So our cases revolved around issues related to the drilling of a well, what people could participate, also costs of a well, those type issues, and more regulation related to pollution. As an administrative law judge within Social Security, the cases I hear are a determination whether a person is eligible and entitled to receive benefits under that area of the law. So our jurisdiction is very exclusive, and it covers the issues that have been raised either through rulemaking of an agency. For example, I'll go back to my days hearing oil and gas cases, or they can relate in Social Security to the rulemaking and regulations that have established who is eligible and then again entitled to receive benefits under Social Security law, which can even be broadened out to some of the unfortunate but also very interesting cases of whether someone is the father of a child, for example, or whether someone was married long enough. And those are the issues that we see. As far as the actual hearing of cases, they are formal, certainly, if you are the person who is before a judge. I know that it would be very serious and very formal to me in that sense, but they are less formal for those of us in the legal sense because clearly you don't have a jury, but also the way they are run. As you may have heard from some of your classes in law school, for those who've already taken that class or those who will take it, the hearsay rule is not something that that applies because we do let in statements of, so-and-so told me that this and that. and statements. So there's a relaxing, which makes it less formal. But again, my focus is on the person in the courtroom with me, because I know this is very formal to them.
Great, thank you so much. Now let's talk about how you got to the position that you're in. And Judge Levine, I'll just stick with you for now. How did you become an administrative law judge?
Very uniquely. My path I owe to a very dear friend in law school who was trying to explain golf to me, to be honest. When we graduated from law school, I was going to work for a legal publisher, and he contacted me when he was at the state agency, said they were looking for people. They really wanted me to move back to the state of Oklahoma. I was in the great state of Texas. So I came in and interviewed and never looked back. So my path was very unique in that sense, to become an ALJ at the state level. I'd like to think, just because my ego would like that stroking, that it was because I was fabulous. But clearly, having a law degree, having skills that I picked up from doing drama in school, those type issues, and I know we'll talk more, I don't want to take up the time here, about the skills that you need. My change to the federal level goes totally to being active in the American Bar Association, to kind of preview answers we'll talk later, because of the people I met, telling me about the opportunity to be at the federal level, and telling me about the program of how you go now to USA Jobs. It was different back last century when I came on, but going to USA Jobs, filling out the forms, which is a nightmare, and you need to be prepared, so I'll warn everyone now about that, but filling out those forms. So my path, again, was unique and special to me.
It is always about who you know a lot of the time. That's wonderful. Chris, can you please guide us through your career path? How did you become an administrative lawyer?
Sure. Basically, at Social Security, we do a lot of hiring at various sprints in time. And for those of you that remember 2009, we had a stimulus package. And the stimulus got sent all over the place, including Social Security. So I lived in the Washington, D.C. area back then, just doing regular old document review, contract attorney work. Essentially, what ended up happening was that Social Security had a position open in Charlottesville, Virginia. Charlottesville, for those of you that don't know the state of Virginia, is about a 2-hour drive from Washington, D.C. So considering that this was at the far end of my world to commute, I would have to get a room in Charlottesville, so that's what I did. I applied for the position, and basically I electronically submitted everything through USA Jobs at first, but then I ended up printing this one out and mailing it manually. And I found out about the position through my law school career services site. That's where we tend to post a lot of our new hires. Tip for you guys: go to your law school career services site. I got a couple phone calls that involved interviews, and then I was asked to come down to Charlottesville. That's where I got started. I was writing decisions for judges for a couple of years. I then transferred back up here to what's called a National Hearing Center up in Falls Church. And then I bounced around to various offices until I am where I'm at now, working for the Chief Administrative Law Judge in a nice little place we call the Tower in Falls Church. There's only one tower in Falls Church. So that's currently where I am. It's been basically just hearing about details and applying for various things. When you're inside, it gets easier. It's not quite, it's still tough because you have a lot of quality competition, but you just have to keep putting in for those internal opportunities. So that's how I ended up where I'm at now.
Great. Well, thanks. Now, Chris, I'll stick with you. please share with us what a day in the life of your work entails.
Oh, I'll be more than happy to. I'll start with what I did with the ALJs, working for people like Judge Jody. Essentially, she hands me instructions on how to write a case, and I write the case. Basically, it details her thinking, her logic. And then what I do is I take that logic and I replicate it in a decision. We have templates, and I'll explain why this is relevant later. We have templates that lay out the law. We have templates that lay out a regulation. We put all that into a decision, and all we're doing is straight up applying the law left and right. That's what we're paid to do, apply the law, and that's what we essentially do all day. Now, after I got out of writing decisions, what I do for the chief administrative law judges, now I get to maintain those templates. I work with various teams. I work with lawyers, and I work with programmers. Basically, I explain programming talk to lawyers, and I explain lawyer logic to programmers. So whenever we have a new regulation that comes out, and they come out, we have rulings, we have laws, we have regulations, whatever. The initial question is when we see a new ruling, or whenever we get our advance notices coming, how does this affect our templates? Are we giving the correct law? Are we giving the correct regulation? So what my job is to go through, make sure everything's legally correct. And then I take user suggestions to what people like what I used to do, writing the decisions, and then bringing that in to the templates to improve their performance and to make it easier for our judges and our writers to basically create the decisions they need and to have them do it efficiently. So that's what I do on a normal day. Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. Can you explain what a template is in this scenario?
Very good. That is a great question. So what we have when we make our decisions, we basically write them as letters. There's a lot of logic that's laid out in those letters. So basically, we have a 5-step process at Social Security, and every case goes through that 5-step process. We explain the reasoning, we explain the facts, we explain all of that. Now, what the templates do is they create a uniform decision, basically for legal sufficiency. We have all the laws and all the regulations cited that basically give us the authority to do what we're doing in that particular decision. Does that answer your question, essentially?
Yeah, thank you.
Basically, that's what it is, yeah.
Okay. All right, I'm going to switch over to Judge Levine. Can you please explain what a typical day entails for an administrative law judge?
Well, there are 2 different kinds of days, as I'm sure everyone has guessed, the days in court and the days out of court. I'll start with the days out of court. There I am insistent on reviewing files before they are scheduled. I think it's my responsibility to be as prepared as the people who appear before me, knowing that case. So I review them, and that entails in Social Security looking at the medical evidence that's been submitted, looking at the other documents to ensure that the case is properly before me, then also to determine in Social Security terms whether a medical expert should testify. And not to get too much in the weeds, medical experts are used to give us opinions based on what they've read of the medical evidence to establish whether the person's medical condition does what's called meets or equals the listings. There are actual listings of impairments that Social Security law has set out that say if a person's medical condition is at this level, meets this criteria, the person could be found eligible at this point. It's always, to me, one of those, oh boy, you meet a listing type situations because, oh my gosh, this person has a serious medical condition they're having to address, and they're getting money to address that. It's a quality of life thing. So I look at those issues. I look at those files. Sometimes cases are so complete there is no need for a hearing, and that you can do what's called writing it on the record, which is self-explanatory. Also, during those days when I'm not in court, it is reviewing decisions that have been drafted to ensure that they match up with my decisional instructions. At the very least, to make sure they have referred to the claimant as a he when he is a man or she as a woman, because we do have a high volume and sometimes things can happen. Making sure dates so far are correct, making sure it is legally compliant with the regulations as well as my instructions. So that's some of what that day is spent. Of course, also answering questions of staff about requests for continuance or other issues that may arise. The court day is hit the ground running day. There you need to be prepared, and by having read the file ahead of time, I know I'm ready to go. I know that when the claimant and his or her attorney comes into the courtroom, that I'm ready to go. I do both a handwritten version of my notes and a typed one. On my handwritten ones, I have circles on questions that I've seen from reviewing the file of, wait a second, your client said that he stopped working 3 years ago, but yet in this medical record it says he's still working. I know we need to address that so that I can alert the attorney at that time in the hearing. During the hearings, that is where I get to be in control, using that word control in quotes, of course, to make sure that the hearing proceeds smoothly, make sure it proceeds completely, make sure that the claimant is provided the due process hearing that he or she is entitled to receive. And hearings can last anywhere from 30 minutes on average to up to 2 hours, because sometimes evidence comes in that needs further discussion. So as a judge, you don't get just one case scheduled a day. You'll have 6 to 7 on average, and that will vary with the judge and the type of cases that can range from cases where someone is not represented. Sometimes those take shorter or longer. Also, the type of evidence that must be discussed. And so as a judge, you also have to be a scheduler in that sense of making sure your cases move quickly through the day so that when you start, and most people start at 8:30, that you can be done by at least 5 o'clock when most people want to go home. So that is a typical day, but knowing that we're working with people, typical days always have little things that crop up that make them extraordinary.
Absolutely. One follow-up question from the audience is it fair to say that by the time it gets to you, do you mostly already have an idea how you're going to rule?
Let me give you the answer that ethically you better not. And I say that because by definition, you do not want to prejudge that case. That's prejudice. You do have an idea, though, of where the issues are going to arise. If you have limited medical evidence, you know, oh, we're going to have to delve into this to see what's going on here. If there's not enough evidence, that's going to give you a key. You know, this is more than likely going to be denied because there's not enough evidence to support it. There are certain variables, certainly, that tell you this is probably going to be the deciding factor, but absolutely not. You should not go into a courtroom saying, I've read this file and this person, there's no way. Certainly you have expectations, but after having done this more years than I want to count, I've read files and walked in and you go, oh my gosh, this is dreadful. This person really, you know, is more severe than the record that black and white paper would show you, or just the reverse of, this sounds really awful, and the person walks in and you're like, no, you don't match the evidence, something doesn't add up.
Thank you. We have one more question that I'll ask from the audience, and then we'll keep going. The question is, how much work is created in ALJ divisions outside of the ALJ positions themselves? Namely, He's curious how frequently ALJ divisions of various agencies have a law clerk or a person like Mr. Fortier who is drafting for judges but is not an ALJ. And so he's wondering if you can speak to the pervasiveness of these types of positions and if they're for law students to be applying for or for lawyers to be applying for.
Oh, you want me to try this one?
Why don't you start and then I'll follow up with you.
Okay. Maybe frustrated with this answer, but it depends on the agency. There are lots of federal agencies, and then of course there are a whole bunch of state agencies. On the state side, I know in Virginia, I know of a few judges who write their own decisions. They do everything Judge Jody just told you about and what I do. So that gets interesting. But on the federal side, I can only speak to what goes on at Social Security. Hearing offices will usually have, it's getting dangerous when I say this, hearing offices can tend to have anywhere from 2 attorneys to 1 judge. Sometimes it's 1 attorney to 1 judge. And those are based all over the country now. We have these places called National Case Assistance Centers, and then we have some regional case assistance centers. Those are just banks and banks of attorneys whose job is to assist the folks in the hearing offices to write those decisions. And they're usually, we have somewhere in multiple hundreds of attorneys at each of these locations, and we have 4 national centers. Falls Church, there may be 5, I don't name them, Falls Church, Virginia, Baltimore, Maryland, Louisville, Kentucky, and Richmond, California, which is just outside of San Francisco. We have those folks there to just specifically write decisions. And we have other instances where the national hearing centers, and we have those in, again, Falls Church, Virginia, Baltimore, Maryland, Chicago, Illinois, St. Louis, Missouri, and Albuquerque, New Mexico. Those have 1 judge, 2 attorneys to a judge. So there are plenty of opportunities around. Hirings usually come at a large level, particularly on the SSA side. But I can't guarantee there'll be any future hirings at that large of a level, but historically there's been hiring.
Okay, thank you. And Judge Levine?
Yeah, sure, I'll add in. At the state agencies, I know when I was at, it was the Oklahoma Corporation Commission, that we did have some law clerks who worked with us for a short time there, and because that also covers the regulation of, I think, your electric and gasoline, gas to your home, as well as motor carrier and oil and gas drilling. We had clerks there. But don't limit yourself to looking at what you might think is the traditional, I'm going to be a lawyer practicing. Check with some of those agencies, because a lot of times they will have lawyers who work within the agency or not in the hearing offices or similar type components. For example, there are tax commissions that sometimes will use lawyers in the accounting area and those things. So explore. Do not just think within the box. Do not even think there is a box. Ask a question. You'll be surprised. Someone may say, well, we've never had a lawyer work on this or a law student work on that, but looking at your credentials, maybe we can find a place for you. So believe in yourself and explore.
Oh, that's great advice. We are running out of time, but I'm going to try and get through a couple of these next questions that we've prepared just to at least give a flavor of what your remarks were. Judge Levine, I'll start with you. What do you love about being an administrative law judge?
I love people, and to expand this just to another question we'd prepared, to do my job as a judge, you better like people. That's your whole job, is listening to people and taking the information they give you to try to apply it to the law. It's, if you want an outside the box, to use that phrase again, it's almost like improv comedy, if you will, that you provide an answer to the comedian up front, they turn it into a joke that works. You provide the information, the facts about who you are to the judge then can base the decision. So again, you have to love people, and learning about people, being respectful for them, listening to their cases. And for our cases, people don't know exactly what Social Security benefits are. They just know it's there. So being able to educate people and show them that, yes, there is someone listening to them, there is someone willing to give them that cliche fair shot of applying their evidence to the law, I thoroughly enjoy that in working with my fellow citizens who drive around. The hate part of the challenge part, not enough hours in the day. The news, of course, is talking about the backlog we have because a lot of people are applying and you're trying to keep things moving. That's the downside part. But, you know, I will admit this on a tape recording. I really like my job. I love being able to work with people and show them how fortunate those of us in the legal profession are that we get to work with the law, that we get to work with people.
Thank you. Chris, what about you? What do you love about your working as an administrative lawyer, and what are some challenges that you face really quickly?
Sure. I guess to go off really quickly, when you're at the ground level working for people like Judge Levine, your work literally gets mailed straight to some person. Your work literally affects their lives. If you like impacting people, well, this is perfect. That's definitely something fantastic in my current position. Since I do dabble a little bit in computer stuff every once in a while, I love dealing with computer programming. We have great people on the system side, on the IT system side that I like dealing with, and we have great lawyers. And so I enjoy translating the talk back and forth. That might be a little weird for me to say, but I definitely love being able to connect people and concepts together. And when you're working at a headquarters, yes, you gotta love people. And that's going to be a thing you're going to have with the federal government, because essentially we are a government by the people for the people. So get used to people. As for some of the challenges, if you're somebody who likes to get things done quickly, you may have some challenges. In the federal government, we tend to move slow. There are a lot of people who weigh in with a lot of feedback, and they have backlogs of stuff that they have to deal with in addition to your matter. So be sure to bring some patience. If you can get stuff done within a year and a half or 2 years, you're doing very well. But again, that can be a challenge at times. You know, people talk about the rhetoric. The rhetoric doesn't really come down to me. It doesn't really affect me in my daily job. I just go and do my job as I have to do my job. As long as the regulations remain the same, those are the regulations I have to help enforce. So it's definitely a lot of fun. My days are always interesting, and I deal with fantastic people. So I have a good time. I've enjoyed my time at Social Security, and for anybody who gets to come along, I hope you enjoy it too.
Great, thank you. All right, so still 2 more quick questions to go through, or 3. What are the top 3 skills that someone needs to work in your kind of position? Chris, if you can just list those 3, that'd be great.
Yes, patience, detail, and more patience.
Yeah, sounds like it. And Judge Levine, what about you for being an administrative law judge?
Be ethical, have excellent communication skills, and be decisive.
Absolutely. So also, Judge Levine, what would people be surprised to know about working as an administrative law judge?
I thought hard on this question. The first thing I will tell you from doing this from the public, they're amazed that not all of us wear judicial robes. In our office, it's a personal choice, one dictated by the fact our courtrooms are hot, so many of us do not wear them. The other thing people would be surprised about, you often hear the cliche that we're the hidden judiciary. People are surprised of the volume and importance that our decisions make in Social Security, an individual person life, as far as getting benefits from hearing oil and gas cases, the impact on millions of dollars of drilling. So that's one of the things that people are always surprised of, the impact that we have. I think is probably the bigger picture item.
That's interesting, and definitely an attraction to this kind of law. Chris, what about you? What would people be surprised to know about being an administrative lawyer?
In my current position, it's that I don't necessarily do a straight up go to court or give legal advice every day or do it even through written memos. There are times I had an internship when I was doing this where I was given the law and I was the guy that knew how to do Photoshop, so I ended up having to create a mock-up of future credentials for agents in the field. For me, I do a fair amount of artwork designing the templates and trying to basically replicate the future user experience what our decision writers and administrative law judges are going to have to look at when they're making their decisions. So it's basically the degree of tech and the degree of art that I have to deal with on a daily basis.
Oh, that's interesting. It uses both sides of your brain. Okay,
Yes.
Lastly, how has ABA involvement boosted your career? And Chris, I'll just start with you.
Sure. I have used the ABA as a way to kind of get experience doing things that my job normally does not get me to do. Basically, when I wrote decisions or when I reviewed documents, I was doing a single task over and over. When you get into the ABA, as I was at a meeting this morning, it was described as a monster with many heads. There are many voices, there are many sections, there are many divisions. Each has to figure out a way to proceed within the association and out in the general legal market. And from there, there's a lot of strategic planning that you could do. There's a lot of large issues, how to weigh and comment on new laws, new regulations that may be floating through, trends within the legal industry, complaints from lawyers. There's all sorts of things that you can do, and I've been able to chair many committees. I've been able to, like I said, lead the strategic plan initiative, something that I never imagined that I do, but I got volunteered for it, and we did it. And so I can always put that as a feather in my cap. Now, how does this relate to my job? Well, when you get interviewed, they're going to ask more complex questions as the higher up you go in the chain. And you can use some of that experience in the ABA to say, yeah, I have done this task. This is how I did the task. This was the problem. This is what I did. This was the solution. And you can say it with confidence because you know exactly how to answer the question. So I guess the essence is you're filling in a lot of gaps with your skills by being in the ABA, and that's been a tremendous benefit for me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Judge Levine, can you explain how ABA involvement has boosted your career?
Oh, absolutely. One, I found out about my current job because of being a member of the American Bar Association, because I was a member of the National Conference of Administrative Law Judiciary in the Judicial Division. My friends who were federal ALJs said, oh, you need to apply to do this. On a personal level, I have lifelong friends. On a professional level, we all go to law school with the idea that we're going to change the world. Here's an opportunity that we can do that. You can be an advocate for issues, and the ABA has members who are liberal, conservative, independent, both in thinking from the law standpoint, from thinking from political party standpoints. I have friends on all different sides of the spectrum, so I'm educated about that, again, personally and professionally. The ABA, as an advocate organization, does speak on behalf of lawyers around the world. It is the largest volunteer organization in the world, and there is the Rule of Law Initiative that helps lawyers in countries around the world advocate, again, for legal services, legal systems, the courts. It is a wonderful chance to explore things that you may want to do personally, and then again professionally, as both Chris and I have mentioned, that you can use these skills to go back to your employer or to a prospective employer. It's a good time, which we often don't get as lawyers and judges. The other thing, being someone in the state of Oklahoma that we are often referenced as a flyover state, it gives you the opportunity to reach out to people around the country to work together with folks from literally California, Guam, Japan, Russia, going back east, thinking from Oklahoma terms, to New York, D.C., London, Paris, so forth. It's an extraordinary experience that comes down to, of course, you get out what you put into it. And I will tell you, from my years of doing this, from being a law student member, a young lawyer member, on into now a judicial member, I have received much more than I ever could have imagined.
Oh, that's so inspiring. Thank you so much, both of you, Judge Levine and Chris, for this insightful discussion on what it's like to be a lawyer and an administrative law judge in an administrative agency. And thank you all for attending today's program. I'm sorry, we went a few minutes over. Attendees, please be sure to check out our website at ambar.org/careers for upcoming free career-related articles and webinars. We do have recordings of all of our past programs on the website. And right now on your screen is our upcoming Career Choice Series webinar. We also have a couple upcoming Career Advice Series webinars. You can connect with us on social media. You can read more about my board on our About page. Please complete our short survey before you leave, and thank you again and have a great day.